There's a lot of different ways to see what your credit score is. You can see it sometimes on your credit card bill. Sometimes you can get it at annualcreditreport.com or things like that. What's important to understand about credit is there are multiple algorithms that create that risk score. So we're talking about when someone says, oh, my credit is 720, or my credit is, I saw it on my credit card
Karma
bill.
says X.
Yeah, Credit Karma says this. In each industry, the lenders pull an algorithm specific to their industry through the agency. So if we talk about the credit world, you have to understand the landscape a bit, right? So you've got your repositories, which are Equifax, TransUnion, Experian. Then within those repositories, they're gathering all the data that's being sent up to them by the creditors. So the creditor might be like your car loan or your home equity line or your mortgage or your credit card. They're all feeding information into the repositories, and the repositories warehouse that data. And the way that lenders in different types of financing try to understand and assess the risk of that borrower or that applicant is to take that information, run it through an algorithm that distills it down to a score, which they can then say, okay, this score is high risk, low risk, in that manner, right? So we consider, it's funny, think about it inversely, like low risk is a high credit score. Low credit score is a high risk. And credit scores typically run from, I think if you look at the algorithm, or when you get a credit report, it'll say the score range is, the algorithm will score something from 400 to 850, and in my 20 years of doing this, I don't think I've ever seen anyone over 830 was the highest. And typically to get to a really high credit score, you have to have a lot of credit, handled it really well, and that gets you to a good credit score. A misconception about credit is that if as long as you don't have any late payments, you have good credit. You can have no late payments because you don't have any credit engagements like accounts, trade lines that you're ever paying on. In that case, you start with nothing. It's like if you, like in grade school, you don't have a GPA, so you start taking some tests, right? So to get your score up, you need to get some credit cards, use your credit cards for things that you can pay off every month. Car loan will help build your credit. Mortgages help build your credit. So it's important to be building your credit through having accounts that you pay on time. Misconception is that a credit score is a credit score is a credit score. So for example, we understood that there's the different repositories. We understood that the creditors are uploading the information to the repositories, and it's coming out to the lenders through specific algorithms. The algorithms vary where they're weighting different information about a client differently per the industry that's trying to make the credit decision. So for example, a mortgage loan lender is going to want to see different aspects weighted in a different manner than a student loan lender, different than a credit card lender versus a car loan lender, because it's all a different type of asset that they're lending against. Some are secured, some are unsecured. So they're going to look at different factors of the same borrower and assess a different risk score. So it's really important that you understand that there's multiple algorithms and they vary per industry. And usually what you see through your credit card or things like Credit Karma or the other kind of free resources that you see out there will be different when you actually transact with the actual creditor that you're applying with, because they're gonna pull that specific report. So it's important to know that.
Yeah, I would also just add too that we're not credit experts, but we've seen it enough over the years that don't be afraid to approach us and let's talk about it. Let's look at the credit if you're not ready now, but we can line up a few things or give you some coaching or even point you to a credit expert to help repair certain things. We have access to those resources too.
Always a good thing to do to improve your credit score is to look at your balances relative to what your allowed credit line is. So say your credit line with that credit card is $10,000 and you've got $9,000 on the card. When you pull credit and it shows 9,000 used versus 10,000 available, you're at 90% utilization. That's going to put a drag on your score. So if you pull your credit report that month, it's going to be a lower credit score than say 3 months down the road where you pay that down to $1,000. So it's 10% utilized on that card. Your credit score is actually going to be, jump up during that month is typically what we see. I think rule of thumb that I've heard from some of the credit agents we've worked with is if you can keep your revolving credit, things like credit cards, under 30% utilized, which would be 3,000 used on a $10,000 line, that's going to be a sweet spot that if you can keep it under that, it's going to not negatively impact and potentially improve your credit. Whereas as you go over 30, you might start to see your credit score drop a bit. So any advice to someone trying to improve their credit is keep their credit accounts under 30% utilized.
Yeah, and I would say to that point, credit cards they really have a big impact on the score because it's probably one of the best ways for the bureaus with these algorithms to gauge. They don't know you personally, right? All they see is the credit being reported. So those credit cards tell a story. If they're maxed out, likely things are tight, right? If you keep a low balance and a low utilization on those cards, you probably have a little more cash flow, and so you're potentially less of a risk. Therefore, the score will go up. So it's a really important thing to keep in mind. And if your scores aren't in a place to go and just apply for a credit card, then you should go talk to, you should look online or go to a local bank and get a secured credit card. And if you don't know what one is, you put up the collateral for that credit card. So you might go to the bank and offer them, $500, and in exchange they give you a secured card that reports on your credit every month. And now use that card to buy gas once a month and pay it off after you buy that gas. So now after a few months of reporting and good, healthy history, low utilization, you'll see your scores really start to climb. And then eventually that card can be unsecured. The bank will return your $500, or they might flip it to an unsecured card.